Hello, everyone. So, welcome to the next session of Art and Culture, and we are continuing our September month current affairs series. Now, art and culture is specifically a static topic, isn't it? Just to give you some idea, we have taken a lot of sessions of art and culture. For example, August month for this year's prelims. Art and culture is, in a sense, an static idea, but some of the government interventions that we do, 80% is static and around 20% is dynamic. Now, within that static portion, we try to cover a lot of aspects. For example, if you have seen a lot of questions of art and culture in ancient medieval, I specifically prioritize because though it's a static topic, it is a very diverse, very in-depth, and a relatively tricky topic as compared to the other subjects. And that's why we need to do a lot of question practice, a lot of content, and as frequent as possible, we need to revise it as well. So, with that thought, let's start. So the first one is temple architecture in news. Today we have one inscription that is in the news, not very important per se, but just we need to know that is Renati Chola inscriptions. Now these inscriptions are unearthed in the Andhra Pradesh, in the Kadapa districts of Andhra Pradesh. We'll see the locations of it. Now these locations are written in the Telugu and the old Telugu, right? So these inscriptions are found on the dolomite slab and the shale, which are part of the fragmentary pillar excavation that are found there. It gives the information of the gift of some land to a person. About these Renati Cholas, who are these? These are the fiduciary under the Chola dynasty, the whole Chola dynasty. If you see the location of the Kadapa district, it's in Andhra Pradesh. So what type of question you can expect? Very basic question. For example, in a test series, whatever test series you are trying, or in your UPSC itself, that this Renati Chola inscription in the news, where it has been found. So as to confuse, for example, Chola dynasty is majorly seen in the Tamil Nadu and these areas, but it's not there. It's in the Andhra region. So they said to be the first kingdom, these Renati Cholas, the first kingdom to use the Telugu in the administration and inscription instead of the Sanskrit. And in that regard, it becomes a bit important. Okay, right. Next is some government intervention, some GI tags. The first one that is in the news, not a new GI tag, but the saris are in the news. That is Chendamangalam saris. Now these saris are from the Kerala, state of Kerala. Now they are in the news because one NGO, that is Care for Chedamangalam, is being using these saris to, first of all, they have two objective, as they say. First, for example, income for these weavers, and secondly, training for the next generation, so that this art is not lost. So this NGO is doing a really good work. For example, they bring the saris from here to the Bangalore for exhibition, so as to uh, increase its popularity and its basically reception of it. So Chedamangalam is a small town near the Ernakulam, which stands at the crossroads of three rivers in the Kerala. That's all. So what is important for us? The Chedamangalam saris is a GI tag saris. They are belong to Kerala. So what you can do later on, for example, you can make a list of all the GI tags that you have studied state-wise, and especially the GI tags from which it is not very clear of which area this GI tag is. Okay? For example, Darjeeling tea. So not very important, but this becomes important. Next is the Prime Minister has inaugurated this Ganga Avalokan from, so it is a museum. Avalokan means to see. So Ganga Avalokan is being, this museum is being set up, first of its kind, set up in the Uttarakhand, Haridwar. You can see this is the border of Uttarakhand and the UP, right? So it is in the Haridwar, that is Chandi Ghat in the Haridwar. So museum will inform the visitor about the need of the Ganga conservation, will present the journey of the river Ganga, historical, biodiversity, cultural perspective. So murals and facelifts will be given, something like that. Not very important. Again, not very important. But these questions become the part of our current affairs, and sometimes in the test series, and maybe in the UPSC you can face them. But as I told you, UPSC basically focuses on the old and ancient art and culture facts. For example, some of the questions that we'll see today, according to that, or the questions we have been tackling in the art and culture previously. Now, next is Bharati scripts, very important. So this is in the idea of one nation, one script, right? So the idea is that you have one script that will represent, that will be amalgamation of a lot of scripts. For example, they have created, who has created the IIT Madras, and Dr. Srinivas Chakravarti has created this unified script for 9 Indian languages. So it includes the scripts of Devanagari, Bengali, Gurumukhi, Gujarati, Udiya, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, and Tamil. So mixing these 9 scripts, they have created a set of letters. So this is known as the Bharati scripts. Now the idea is to, as I told you, one nation, one script, and more importantly, it will be beneficial for, let's say, for people to understand the other Indian languages. It is said that if we have a standardized system, so it would be easy to create, let's say, a braille system for blind person. It would be easy for the adult literacy programs. So it would create a basically an ecosystem based approach, one stop shop, so that those who are not taught in one language, they can read this particular language and they can work around the other languages as well. Okay. Now it's basically, it's a start of an idea. Government has been thinking to do that, but still not recognized at the level of the government. But yes, some experiments are being done. Till the time it's being not recognized by the government, still we have to wait. Next is some history. This year, this month, some history is important. For example, Govind Ballabh Pant is in the news in September month. Now we have to know Govind Ballabh Pant, his efforts pre-independence and post-independence. All the leaders which have worked pre and post-independence become relatively more important. For example, they have asked about the Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. For example, they have asked about Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and they can ask about Govind Ballabh Pant as well. He belongs to basically United Province, earlier Uttarakhand, nowadays Uttarakhand, and overall United Province. So pre-independence, he was a lawyer and he represented Bismil Khan and Ashfaqullah Khan, Ram Prasad Bismil and Ashfaqullah Khan in the Kakuri case. In Salt March, he got arrested. He joined the Legislative Council and Central Legislative Assembly also as a deputy leader when elections used to happen, when the Indian participation started in that period. He was jailed in the Quit India movement, and he became the chief minister of the United Province in 1937 to 39. Now, what kind of questions you can expect? For example, they'll again give you a details of it. Okay, these things are done. Identify the leader. Who is the leader? Then you are given one choice and you can be asked such questions. You can find more, some of the sessions that I've taken previously, means in a different series. You can go to Amrita channel and go to the playlist, and in the playlist you will find one impetus sessions. So three impetus sessions I have taken, that is personalities of India. So there I think I have discussed around 5 to 8 to 9 personalities. That session can help you to fetch more marks. That's a good compilation of, for example, Dadabhai Nehroji, Annie Besant, Lokman Bal Gangadhar Tilak. A lot of people I have compiled and everything they have done. For example, like Govind Ballabh Pant here. So in Kashipur established an organization, that is Prem Sabha, that start working towards the several reforms. So these are the things he has done pre-independence. Post-independence, he became the chief minister of the United Province, which was one of the biggest province in terms of the population and also in terms of the area, also one of the biggest province. One of the major thing he has done, abolition of zamindari, which was a state subject. He stood in favor of the Hindu code bill, that needs to be there. He was the one who championed the cause of Hindi, and ultimately when Hindi became one of the official languages, he was one of the instrumental factor behind it. Now, he became the Union Home Minister in 1955 to 1961. Okay? And when he was the Home Minister, one of the most significant thing that happened, that is the linguistic reorganization of the states. You know how controversial that was. What are the problems that have come into getting it done? So many commissions were formed. A lot of people have protested. A few of them died as well. And in doing so, he has been given the Bharat Ratna in 1957. Okay? So in the mains also, you can be asked one question: the contribution of the Govind Ballabh Pant can be seen pre-independence and post-independence, and from that you can answer from this information itself you can answer these questions. The more contribution, obviously, as he died in 1961, more contribution is obviously in the pre-independence time, and the post-independence time, managing this very volatile state, that is United Province, and abolition of zamindari, then as a home minister, challenges as a home minister. Chalo. Next is Kakatiya dynasty. Now this is in the news because one of the ancient temples transition One of the ancient temple was in the news. For example, Kakati Devi temple was built by Kakatiya ruler of Ganapati Deva, has been converted into a adobe of the local goddess. So basically, there was a temple created by the Kakatiya dynasty. Now that temple no upkeep was there. Then the villagers have installed the local goddess, and now they're worshipping the local goddess. Okay. Now this gives us an context to read more about the Kakatiya dynasty. Kakatiya dynasty is also in the news last year also because Telangana government has launched one mission Kakatiya. We'll discuss that. Chalo. So Kakatiya dynasty was a feudatories of the western earlier Rashtrakutas and the western Chalukyas. The earlier ruler are said to be from 1800 CE, 800 CE, sorry. So earlier they were the feudatories of Rashtrakutas. When Rashtrakutas ended, then under the western Chalukyas. They became their own independent kingdom in 1163. What you need to remember is the first leader. Why? Because they have asked questions this year. For example, one of the questions I've discussed previously in August month, that they have asked the chronology based question and they are focusing on the first rulers of the dynasties. For example, Chola, for example, Pallava, like that. So Pratap Rudra I was the first ruler. Then you have a very famous ruler, that is Ganapati Deva. He was the most famous. He expanded the empire till in the south. From this whole region he occupied. Then after Ganpati Deva, a queen, that is Rudrama Devi. She was a queen, and very less women rulers we have. So we have the Rudrama Devi who ruled for quite a while, from 1262 to 1289. Now, important thing that happened in the time, that was Marco Polo visited. If you remember last time also, when I've discussed one traveler, I told travelers are very, very important. All the questions related to travelers are very, very important. So Marco Polo visited the Kakatiya dynasty in the time of the Rudrama Devi. He wrote about the prosperity and the power, the prestige the Kakatiya dynasty had on the people and the outside. Right. So these are the political history of it. If we talk about the socio-economic part of it, so one of the very famous port was a Motupalli port, very famous port. UPSC previously has asked one question on it as well, Motupalli port. I'll try to put that question in next session or somewhere. Now it was famous. Kakatiya dynasty was very famous for the large tank, and those large tanks are being made for irrigation and the drinking water purpose. As you can see, it's basically in the Telangana, isn't it? So Telangana, peninsular India, lack of water, lack of perennial river. So you require some sort of structures for water conservation and the water for consumption purpose. And all these things help in the crop production. Okay? Very importantly, Kohinoor diamond was mined in the Golconda mines during the rule of the Kakatiya dynasty. Okay? Now that Kohinoor was taken up from India by the Nadir Shah from India. He has taken the Kohinoor to outside. Chalo. Currently, Kohinoor is there in the Buckingham Palace. Next is the Mission Kakatiya. So Mission Kakatiya was in the news because it is in the Telangana. Okay, Telangana government announced this Mission Kakatiya based upon the inspiration of by the Kakatiya dynasty. So restoration of the irrigation tanks, lakes, minor irrigation source built by the Kakatiya dynasty based upon the inspiration. For example, importance of the tanks in the state. Tanks have been the lifeline of the state owing to each state's geographical positioning. The people of the states are highly dependent on the tanks, which is spread across the 10 districts and all these things. Now, it's an old age activity since the pre-Satavahana era. During the Kakatiya, construction of the tank was carried out with utmost technical expertise. Tanks such as Rammappa, Pakhala, and others are built by Kakatiya, resemble seas, and they greatly help in the agriculture and overall development and prosperity of the Kakatiya kingdom. So, based upon that inspiration, they have launched this Mission Kakatiya. This can be a very famous government initiative or state government initiative for the restoration of the rivers. Now, Kakatiya dynasty also, some of the temples are which very famous in this time. For example, first is the Rudreshwara temple. Rudreshwara temple, Ramappa temple, and Warangal fort. These three things are important. All the three are part of the tentative list or the UNESCO World Heritage Site recently being added. Recently means last year. So that's why they become a relatively more important for us to study. Now, first is the Rudreshwara temple. You can see the location in the Telangana. You can see a lot of pillars being there, right? And that is why it is known as the thousand pillar temple. A temple with the thousand pillars is one of the earliest structures in the Kakatiya dynasty, built by the Rudra Deva in 1163. The temple is known for its richly carved pillars, perforated screens, and all these things. Temples were desecrated by the rulers of the Tughlaq dynasty during the invasion in the Deccan region. ठीक है, चलो. Next is your Ramappa temple. Ramappa temple is one of the very few temples which are known by the sculptor who built it rather than the presiding deity. It was built during the king Ganapati Deva by the chief commander Rudra Samaini, and sculpture works and all these things are there. More importantly, one observation that you have to remember that Marco Polo said about this. Marco Polo came in the Kakatiya dynasty and he said that he called it the brightest star in the galaxy of the temple. So, for example, what question you can expect? The descriptions of it, the built in the Kakatiya dynasty and all these things. And Marco Polo called is this: identify the temple. So, option 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And the last one is the Warangal Fort. Warangal Fort was built by King Ganapati again, completed by his daughter Rudrama Devi that we have discussed. It has 4 paths with decoratives and lofty gateways. These are known as these are the Toranas. Okay, Toranas are basically known as the gateways. And this is a very elaborated gateways that they have made again in the Warangal Fort. Chalo. Okay. So remember all these three differently because these are also in the news. They can come. Chalo. Next is the Punnapara and Vayalar revolt. Why it's in the news? First of all, it is in the news because the same context which the context we have discussed, the revolt of the Mopla revolt, that ICHR has said that they formed a committee whether the people who killed in this revolt, Mopla revolt, should be included into the dictionary of the martyrs or not. Okay, dictionary of martyrs. Now the same argument has come. ICHR has said that these people should not be included into the dictionary of the martyrs. Why? They argue that these people have not revolted against the Britishers. They have revolted against the interim government which was placed in the Travancore. Now this revolt happened very close to the independence, 1946. Okay, it was basically against the interim government. Now the interim government in Travancore was, the head was the Prime Minister CP Rameshwari Iyer and the state, and the people did not like that his rule. So for 10 days this revolt has happened. They have moved from Punnapara to Velar within the Kerala. You can see that. Okay, so to overthrow the exploitative Diwan of the Travancore, to liberate the working class from unjust taxation and the exploitation of the establishment. Now this Prime Minister, because CP Ramaswamy Iyer, the Diwan of the Travancore, had the full backing of the British government and had implemented governance reform which gave him absolute power, like the president of an America. Now this is why people were unhappy. A lot of tax has to be given. For example, just take the case of the fishermen. Half of whatever they get should get into the hands of the landlord, and half of the rest should go to the church. So basically they were fed up of this, and it was said to be one of the communist revolution. Why? Because it was the working class which has rose up against the state. Okay, against the state. It saw people of all class come up in the arms against the common tyrant, and it dissolved the class and the religion distinction and induced the unity among the people. So what you need to remember, that is Punnapara and Velar revolt, the time period. The most critical period here is the time period. Second critical thing is the region where it happened. And the third region is the reason. Only 3 things if you remember, that's all you need to know. Okay? Now, next one, not very important, Shri Vishwanath Satyanarayan. So basically he was the person from Andhra Pradesh. He was the first writer to impart first Telugu-ness to the Ramayana. He got a Gyanpith award. Not very important per se, but it was in the news. That's just the reason we are discussing it. 125th birth anniversary. So he was translated to Hindi by the former Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, his work. Okay? He highlighted the importance of the imparting the learning in the mother tongue, preserving the culture and protecting the nature. Dekho, in history, what is important? History may, for example, the questions, for example, such revolts, Govind Vallabh Pant, Kakatiya dynasty, these things become relatively more important, which are more in the public consciousness, not in the present, but in overall academic consciousness, I should say. Okay. The last one, 2 more things are there. That is, first is Loya Jirga. Now, basically, this is in Afghanistan. Now, in Afghanistan, in the next turn itself, in the October month, I'll discuss the whole Afghan story. Now, in Afghanistan, the intra-Afghan talks are going on. Okay? Now, for the intra-Afghan talks means Taliban and the Afghan government. They need to talk. Now, this is the point that now Taliban has demanded that some of the people the government has captured in the prison because of the lot of things that they have done. The Taliban says that if you release these people, then only we will talk. So this is the idea. Now the government has said no, we will not do it. The government has categorically said that we will not do it. But to resolve such issues, to resolve such big issues, they have one tradition that is of Loya Jirga. So Loya Jirga is basically an Afghan tradition. It is known as the Assembly of the Tribal Elders. It is Afghanistan's most powerful institutions. It approved Its approval of the release of the Taliban prisoners has paved the way for intra-Afghan talks and possibility and end to a conflict. So basically, you can say they are like grandfathers, in a family. So though they did not have any, if they say, it does not mean that it has to be implemented, but they have a lot of influence over the decision making. That's the idea. Okay, so their decisions are not binding, but they are respected. So they are the one who choose new constitutions, declare war, choose a new king, or to make sweeping social and the political reforms. So this is known as the Loya Jirga. Why this is important? This is important because this is an Afghan process, and India is a very keen observer and an integral part of it. And that's why this world itself becomes important. So Loya Jirga is a grand council. It's a mass national gathering which brings together the representatives from the various ethnic, religious, and the tribal communities in the Afghanistan. Okay, it's a very old tradition. The last one, that is the Chora Museum or Kariye Museum. Now, this is in the line of the second thing that has been converted from a museum to a mosque, and this is happening in the Turkey. Turkey may within the Istanbul. It's been happening. The first one that has been converted, that was the Hagia Sophia. Now, Turkey, Erdogan. In the Turkey, Erdogan, very poor economic performance and the extreme nationalism is increasing. And his extreme nationalism is based upon the idea of the Islamic ideology or Islamic fundamentalism. Now, obviously, he wants to capture one of the idea of the Turkey, also capture the leadership of the Islamic world. And to show his Islamicness, he is converting all these museums into into mosque. Now, these museums were being, for example, Hagia Sophia, it's being converted. Earlier, it was a church. It was converted into the museum by the Mustafa Kemal, who became a very secular leader post the fall of the Ottomans. So it turned into, for example, the church was seized and turned into a mosque in 1511. Then the change in the guard of the Turkey after the World War I. Then it was converted into the mosque. Then it was again converted into it converted into a museum, then converted into a mosque. So this is the journey of this particular museum, you can see. Okay? Chalo. So this is Chora Museum or Kariye Museum. What is important for us? Just remember that these are the museum that is in the news, where it is located. That's it. Other than that, no questions will be asked. Yes, you can quote such examples in your essay that this is being done. This is the kind of hyper nationalism which is there, or basically rerouting the anger of the people through the religious way. For example, like Hagia Sophia, Turkey to convert the Chora Museum into the mosque as well. Chalo. Don't go too much into the history of these things. Not at all required. You just need to know what it is, okay, and in the which context it's being done. Now that's the end of the session. Today we'll discuss very good questions on the ancient history. A lot of questions of previous year. For example, the first question from 2020 itself. With reference to the history of the India, the terms that is Kulya Vapa and Drona Vapa denote. What does these terms Kulla Vapa and Drona Vapa denote? Now, this is the question which will come into the category of no. It's a very tough question, not found in the traditional text. Very Upendra Singh, for example, it's a book for history optional in which this is given. But one is not supposed to get these questions. I have already told you one of the strategies you can go 3 categories. First, must, that you must get it right. Second, for which you should need to strive. And third is the no. Don't change your sources post this question. And in fact, I won't discuss a lot about this question. For example, these are the different land measures were there during the Gupta period. That's all. Okay. Now, obviously, there are a lot of terms which will be like that. You cannot go through it. Only which is present in the standard books, NCRTs, those are relevant for us. I told you, obviously, UPSC is putting such questions so as to derail the students from their preparation itself. You can imagine, cutoff is going only 90 to 100. Even after such a huge competition, what is the reason behind it? Because no one is attempting such questions. So don't lose your sleep over these questions. So the answer is the measurement of land in the Gupta period. Next question. These questions come in the strive category. These are not no questions because these are given properly in your textbooks, properly in the NCRT is mentioned, very well discussed. Right. With reference to the history of the India's rock cut architecture, consider the following statements. The caves at Badami are the oldest surviving rock cut caves in India. Caves at Badami are the oldest surviving rock cut caves in India. The Barabar rock cut caves are originally made for Ajivikas by the Emperor Chandragupta Maurya. At Ellora, the caves were made of different faith. Pause the video and try to answer the question. It's a very straightforward and a good question. Now you need to know different caves and you need to know the some important details about them as well. For example, starting with the Barabar cave. Now it is the oldest surviving rock cut cave in India. That is the Barabar cave. It is located in the Bihar. Okay. Now it was done in the Mauryan Empire. Okay. It is located in the twin hills of Barabar and the Nagarjuni hills. One of the very famous cave of this Barabar caves is the Lomas Rishi cave. Okay. Now it bears the inscription of the King Priyadasi. That is, King Priyadasi is known for the Ashoka, and the Devam Priya Dashratha, that is the grandson of Ashoka. Now used by the ascetics from the Ajivika sets, and they were given, obviously the time period matches that of Ashoka, not of Chandragupta Maurya. So these are the Barabar caves. Next you have the Badami caves. Badami caves are in the south, that is in Karnataka. You can see that. So Badami caves are basically Hindu plus Jain. 20 caves are there. Sorry, at Badami. So you find both Hindu and the Jain caves. The time period is around 6th century CE. It's an example of the Badami Chalukya architecture. And for early Chalukya dynasty, it was the capital. Badami was the capital. In one of the caves, that is cave number 1, you can see the Shiva, that is in the Nataraja form doing the Tandav dance. Okay. The next cave is the Ellora cave. Not too much details I have kept, but Ellora is very famous. For example, located in the Maharashtra. This is Kailash Nath temple, very famous temple that is located within the Ellora caves. Kailash Nath temple. Now Ellora caves have caves not only from Buddhism but also Hinduism and Jainism. Unlike the Ajanta caves, which contains the caves of the Buddhism only. Okay? So Ellora caves consist the caves of all the religion. So the first statement, caves at Badami are the oldest. No, they are the caves at Barabar caves. So second, Barabar rock cut caves originally made for Ajivika. Yes. By the Chandragupta Maurya. No. At Ellora, caves were made for the different faith. Yes. So answer will be 3 only. Let's go to the next question. It's a 2015 question. With reference to art and archaeological history of India, which of the among the following were, which one among all the following was made the earliest? Which was the made earliest? So basically, it's a chronology based question. It's a good question. Chronology based question. So first is the Lingaraj temple at Bhubaneswara, rock cut elephant at Dhauli, rock cut monuments at Mahabalipuram, and Varha image at the Udaygiri. Pause the video and try to answer the question. It's a question, it's a very perfect question. And you can see UPSC repeating similar questions year by year. And 2020, you also witness the same question, but from the ancient history. One of the major challenges in the ancient history and the art and culture is to remember the chronology and remember this framework. Okay, when this particular thing has happened, right? So remembering this after which dynasty has come, something like that. This becomes a bit tricky. For example, after Rashtrakutas, Western Chalukyas have come. After Western Chalukyas, whose fiduciaries were Kakatiya dynasty, like that. Now, Lingaraj temple we have discussed last time. Let's start with the Dholi. So Dholi, you can see this elephant coming out of the rock, very famous. So rock cut at Dholi. You can also see one thing in the background that is also that is the Shanti Stupa at Dhaulagiri. Okay, so it is on the river Daya near the Bhubaneswar. It was the belief that Kalinga war was fought in the Dhauli hills. Now, if you see the time period, 600 BC, okay, and after that, they have constructed this rock edict. After Buddha, Ashoka got converted, or Ashoka had the epiphany that we need to adopt a part of peace, not of war. Okay? Now, this was done in the times of the Mauryas, that is specifically the Ashoka. This is your Shanti Stupa, and the location you can see here. This is Chilka Lake, in the Odisha, near the Bhubaneswar. Next, the Lingaraj temple we have discussed, that is a 11th century temple. We have discussed in detail last time, right? That Lingaraja temple built up by the one of the dynasty, Somavamshi dynasty, later by the Ganga dynasty, not famous dynasty was there, made up of the Kalinga architecture and so many things that we have discussed last time. So its time period is 11th century. Next, your series of or whole complex that has been made in the Mamallapuram or Mahabalipuram. The second summit, that is Chennai Connect, has happened in this there only, right? Informal summit of India and China last year. Now, a few of the things that are famous from that place. First is the Ratha temple, Pancharath temple. So you have the temple of, let's say, Dharmaraja temple. You have Bhima Ratha, Arjun Ratha, Draupadi Ratha. Dharmaraj Ratha is the biggest one, made in the 7th century AD. Then you have the rock cut caves there, that is Varaha cave temple, Krishna cave temple, Mahishasur Mardani Mandap. So these are those rock cut caves temple. These are the two things. Then you have the open air rock reliefs. For example, this is open air, right? Here you can see the Pinas of Arjun, the Bhagirath Pinas, descent of Ganga, how Ganga brought down to earth. That's been depicted in such rock reliefs. This is again in the Mahabalipuram. And lastly, the Shore temple dedicated to Lord Shiva. It is there. Shore temple we have discussed last year as well. Just kept the notes of it. So it was last time, it was in the news that the shoreline on the northern side of the Shore temple was facing severe sea erosion. Then it was among the number of Hindu monuments at the Mamallapuram Coromandel coast, probably built in the reign of Narsimha II, also known as the Rajsimha in the 700 to 728 CE. Then the location you can see very near to Chennai. Okay, it's built in the Dravidian style. So this is your Shore temple. Next is the Udaigiri caves. Udaigiri caves in the MP, Vidisha in the MP. So here we have the Vaishnavism, Shakhism, and Shaivism. All the things are present. 20 caves are there. 19 caves are dedicated to Hinduism. One cave to the Jainism, and one major cave. This is the representative. That is the boar. Lord Vishnu in his boar incarnation saving the earth, represented in the form of the Bhudevi. Not represented as the form of earth, but as the Bhudevi, as a goddess. So he is saving the earth. Okay. Now inscriptions of Chandragupta II and Kumaragupta I are being found, and they are in the Gupta period, 5th century CE. Okay. Chalo. Now if you see the time period, I have kept the time period. Lingaraj temple 11th century AD, rock cut at Dhauli 250 BC, rock cut monuments at Mahabalipuram 700 728 AD, and then Varaha temple at 5th century CE. So very easy. That is the oldest one, is the rock cut elephant at the Dhauli. Next one is who of the following had first deciphered the edicts of the Lord of Emperor Ashoka? 2016 question. So George Bilher, second is the James Princip, next is Max Muller, next is William Jones. Who is the answer? What is the answer? The answer is very famous. It's been given into NCRTs. That is James Princip. Now, first, very quickly, let us see the few of the names as well. First is the William Jones. So William Jones, very important. William Jones was the one who founded the Asiatic Society of Bengal in the reign of the Warren Hastings. Okay, Warren Hastings, who was the Governor General from 1773 to 1785. He was the first Governor General of the Fort William, or Governor General of Bengal. Governor General of the Fort William. Chaliye. Then he was a judge on the Supreme Court. Earlier, he was judge on the Supreme Court. Then he was an Orientalist. He very interested in the, let's say, finding the connection between the Indo and the European language, which he called Indo-European. So relationship between the European and the Indo-Aryan language. He is Mr. William Jones. Then you have the Mr. James Princip. He was the editor after. You also see the time period. For example, William Jones' time period is 1746 to 1794. Then you have the James Princip after him. Now he became the founding editor of the Asiatic Society of Bengal. There he worked on the deciphering the Kharosthi and the Brahmi script in which the edicts of the Ashokas are written. His also works are in the numismatics and the metallurgy. Numismatics, that is study of the coins. Then you have the Max Muller. Max Muller was a basically Indologist who studied about Indian. His views can be seen in early views and the later views. Early's views were like that India needs to be conquered with the language, with the education. We need to pump in a lot of money for the education. Later views were more appreciative of the India. For example, you can see in the whole quote. For example, if you have to look for the whole world to find out the country most richly endowed with the wealth, power, and the beauty that the nature can bestow in some part a very paradise on the earth, I should point to India. If you want to see that humankind has most developed, then come to India. Then if I were to ask myself from what literature our inner life more becomes more perfect, more comprehensive, more universal, I should point to India. So in the later writings, you can find some of the appreciation for the India by the Max Muller. In fact, we use some of the quotes of the Max Muller when we point out the ancient glory of India. When we talk about the India's contribution to the whole world, you can quote Max Muller in that. So the answer is very easy. That is James Princip. He was also an Indologist. He also studied about India, not very significant. Chalo. The last question is, consider the following historical temples: Sun temples at Konark, Dashavatara temple at Devgarh, and Virupaksha temple at Mysore. Which among the followings, which of the followings are Nagara style temple? You see, why I give such very elaborative discussions and such questions. The idea is to discuss such questions and to give you as much content as possible. Okay? So as you develop these tendencies, you develop a lot of content, or if you have already developed, you revise a lot of content. If you've already read this, try to answer this question. If not, then also see the content after it and try to retain that content. So this is the basic idea. Now let us see this question. Sun temple at Konark, Dashavatara Vishnu temple at Devgarh, Virupaksha temple at Mysore. Which of the following are made in a Nagara style temple? Now, first let us see the Dashavatara temple. Dashavatara temple was made in the Gupta period 500 CE. It's located in the Devgarh in UP itself. And if you see, this is in the Nagara style and earlier forms of the Nagara style, and this is known as the Jagati, the platforms. And that is why this is also known as the temple on the tanks. Okay, Sagar Mud. It is built up of the masonry bricks and the stone. It's a Vishnu temple, but also the temples of Shiva, Brahma, and all these things are also nearby. So this is your Dashavatara temple in the Devgarh. Very important temple. Very important figure is the of reclining Vishnu. That is also there in the Dashavatara temple. Okay? Chalo. Next is your Konark Sun temple. Konark Sun temple is basically basically massive conception. It's built in the middle of the 13th century. Okay. Now built by Narsimha Deva I, the great ruler of the Ganga dynasty, built this temple. Since the ruler used to worship the sun, the temple is considered as the chariot for the sun god. So this is located here in the Odisha itself. It is a Kalinga architecture, and we have seen that Kalinga architecture is one of the subtypes of the Nagara architecture, right? Last time we have discussed that. It is also referred as the Black Pagoda, this particular temple. Why it's referred as the Black Pagoda? Because of the dark color and the magnetic power that drew ships into the shore and caused shipwrecks. So basically, they believe that it has a magnetic power and it can draw the ships to the shore. So this is why it is known as the Black Pagoda. Last year it was in the news. For example, in the March, we have discussed that Konark Sun Temple to be included into the iconic list. Okay? Chalo. Next is the Virupaksha temple. Virupaksha temple is located in the Hampi. We have looked at the Hampi. We discussed about Hampi. Virupaksha temple, we also we understood. So this is a part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Temple is dedicated to Virupaksha, form of the Shiva, and it's in the Dravida style. So the first answer is yes, Konark. Second is Devgarh. This is a Kalinga, that is a part of the Nagara style, right? So remember that. And third is Virupaksha is in the Dravida style. So the answer is 1 and 2 only. So with this, we finish the session. So the idea is obviously the questions you can see that have taken more part. The idea is to give you a lot of content and very structured content in the form of the question and answer. Because with such, when we learn with such objectivity, we learn more. So with this, we finish our session. The next session we'll discuss about the defense. Until then, bye-bye. Thank you.